Gospel reading is taken from Matthew chapter 15, starting at verse 29. After Jesus had left that place, he passed along the Sea of Galilee, and he went up the mountain, where he sat down. Great crowds came to him, bringing with them the lame, the maimed, the blind, the mute, and many others. They put them at his feet, and he cured them. So that the crowd was amazed when they saw the mute speaking, the maimed whole, the lame walking, and the blind seeing, and they praised the God of Israel. Then Jesus called his disciples to him and said, I have compassion for the crowd, because they have been with me for 3 days now, and have had nothing to eat, and I don't want to send them away hungry, for they might faint on the way. The disciples said to him, Where are we to get enough bread in the desert to feed so great a crowd? Jesus asked them, How many loaves have you? They said, 7 and a few small fish. Then, ordering the crowd to sit down on the ground, he took the 7 loaves and the fish, and after giving thanks, he broke them and gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowds. And all of them ate and were filled. And they took up the broken pieces left over, 7 basketfuls. Those who had eaten were 4,000 men, besides women and children. After sending away the crowds, he got into the boat and went to the region of Magadan. Here ends the lesson.
Have you ever noticed that if there's workmen digging a hole in the ground, people will gather round just to look at it, just to see what's going on? Maybe offer us suggestions, helpful suggestions possibly? Well, you never know. And if there's an incident that's happened, then the crowd is even bigger. There's people who want to see what's happening, especially if the police or ambulance or anything else are involved. You only have to watch the news just to see when they go to the reporter on the scene, there's always other news people around, and usually a crowd of people quite genuinely interested. So, think back to that reading. I wonder what the crowd there thought. There was quite a number of them there to start with, and I'm sure the numbers grew and grew and grew. Why were they there? Jesus had gone up onto the mountainside by himself, and yet people follow him. Why? Had they heard that he was a good speaker? They'd certainly heard that he could heal the sick. And they went up there to see whether he could help them, to see whether he could talk to them, that they might hear directly from him. And so they gather in great numbers eventually, and we're told that Jesus heals the sick and talks to them. They don't seem to have gone away after they've been healed or talked to. In fact, the numbers grow and grow to 4,000 plus, and they stay there for days. There must have been something absolutely outstandingly special for them to stay. And on the 4th day, Jesus takes compassion on them and realizes that they not only need to be talked to and healed, but they need to be fed as well. And so we get the miracle of the feeding, in this case, of the 4,000 plus. Jesus has fed them in body, in mind, and in spirit. After the feeding, he goes back to the lake and goes on his way. What did the crowd do? They must have dispersed with all sorts of thoughts and emotions running through their heads. Gratitude for what's happened to them, especially if they've been healed. Wonder at this amazing person. There must have been all sorts of things going through their heads. But we don't know what they were. We're never told what happened to all those people. Whether they took Jesus' message beyond that event, whether they went just back to their homes and after the daily grind of all their jobs and household worries and problems took over, whether they just put it back into their memories as one of those things that I remember when. Or did they take his message to heart? And did they try and reform their own lives? We'll never know. We're very lucky today. We have Jesus with us all the time, everywhere. We don't have to climb a mountain to see him. He is always with us. And he shows us God's love for us and our care for us. So my question is, do we take that for granted? Do we just assume that whenever it suits us to sit down and pray or read the Bible, Jesus will be there? Just because we know he is, do we take that for granted? I hope not. Because when God sent Jesus to live amongst us, it was going to be forever. We may not see him face to face yet. We will do one day. But that doesn't stop us each and every day praying to him, thanking him for his presence with us, thanking him for the strength that he gives us to get through each day, thanking us that we have food to eat, thanking him that we have food to eat. We must never take all this for granted. So as we go through Advent, let us prepare ourselves for the great event of Christmas, when God keeps his promise to us to send Jesus to be part of our world. And as we reflect on all the stories of Jesus, let them touch our hearts, change us for the better, and be always prepared each and every day to recognise that he is walking beside us. Amen.